The cause of a massive fire that wiped out more than 20 businesses in Nederland last fall will not be determined before the summer. Thanks for joining us. I'm Kyle Clark.
I'm Kim Christensen. This type of investigation typically takes some time, but the federal agency called in to help is running into roadblocks. 9 News reporter Spencer Soisher explains why.
When the wind is zipping here in Nederland like it is tonight, it means ash and debris fill the air. About 3.5 months after a fire knocked out about a third of the town's small businesses, they still don't know how it started. Now people here will have to wait until this summer at the earliest to find out.
I don't really care.
Sometimes things linger for so long, you just gotta move on.
The destruction over there, it's like breaking up with somebody and then they just hang around. You're just like, no, just go away. I don't want to see you anymore.
John Thompson,
woo, go Hoyas,
lost his business, Mountain Man Outdoor Store, in the October fire at the Caribou Village Shopping Center, one of 21 businesses lost. He found a new spot across the street.
Right now I'm still rolling on money from the insurance.
He may not care at this point how the fire started, but plenty of people in Nederland do.
There's so many conspiracy theories out there. Oh, it was this, it was that.
We have had a lot of our community reaching out to us.
Nederland Fire Chief Charlie Schmidtman says the fire was so large that night, the investigation required the ATF's assistance. And right now, they're bogged down.
They're constantly moving around, and so there's been other parts where there's been government shutdowns, and so the labs were even shut down at some point, and so there have been pretty significant challenges.
Those same investigators were called in to investigate the massive fire at an under-construction apartment building in Denver earlier this month. But the cause of that fire at that building was determined far quicker. Schmidtman says there were more variables to sort through here.
There was separate businesses and homeowners and things like that they had to, go and specifically ask permission or go to those people directly and get that video footage. So that also is a challenge.
Investigators have ruled out arson already, but how it started and where could matter for insurance purposes.
It's also for the peace of mind for all the folks that were involved.
That won't come until at least summer for many. But peace of mind? John Thompson's in a good headspace already.
If you stop and think about that stuff too much, it'll drive you bonkers.
The fire department says it's collected all of the evidence here at the scene that the ATF needs for its investigation. So any holdup in clearing or demolishing this area is not being held up on their end. In Nederland, Spencer Soisher, 9 News.
A person is in critical condition after falling through some ice at Sand Creek Park in Aurora. Crews were called to the scene off North Fitzsimmons Parkway near Peoria Street about 7 tonight. A witness reported seeing an adult and 3 dogs walking near the ice-covered water. A few minutes later, a flashlight was seen on the ice next to a hole where a dog was in distress, and the witness called 911. Firefighters rescued the dog and the adult. In fact, all 3 dogs are okay and being cared for by Animal Services, but their owner remains hospitalized tonight.
Dry and mild conditions have returned to the metro area and is likely to stay that way for the foreseeable future, while there are some changes expected in the high country. Meteorologist Chris Bianchi's along. And Chris, anytime we talk about these ice rescues, you got to think that this winter, compared to past winters, people may have ideas about where they can safely go this time of year, and that's out of whack right now.
Exactly right, Kyle. Those maybe past years that you might reference, you think it's the middle of winter, it is the end of January. Folks, please don't take any chances. It's definitely been that warm, dry winter that we've been talking about at length here, so don't take chances with ponds, bodies of water, even ones that might typically by this point be frozen over. Meantime, here in Denver, it is quiet with temperatures mostly in the 20s and 30s around the metro area. On this Tuesday evening, January the 27th, temperatures in the high country, a lot of single digits and teens, though we're talking about some 20s in some of our typically warmer spots. 35 in the 9 News backyard, but mostly 20s and teens across the eastern plains. Radar is quiet, but this is our next storm system, bringing some rain and snow to the Pacific Northwest. This will bring the mountains some snow tomorrow night and into Thursday morning, and this will lead to a few inches of snow for some spots. I'll show you those snowfall totals and what those impacts might be from the snow event and when our next chance for rain or snow will be for us in Denver, coming up in just a few minutes.
Minnesota's Democratic Congresswoman Ilhan Omar was attacked tonight at a town hall in Minneapolis.
Man ran up to her and sprayed her with some kind of liquid. She was speaking at the time about the recent shootings involving federal officers in her city. 9 News anchor Phil Lipoff is along now with Congresswoman Omar's defiant reaction to that attack, Phil.
Kyle, Congresswoman Omar had just finished calling on Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem to resign or be impeached when a man rushed toward her and sprayed her with an unknown brown liquid. Here's the video from the incident. Take a look. The man rushes untouched at the Congresswoman with what looks like a syringe, sprays her with that brownish liquid. Witnesses in the room say whatever was in there smelled bad. Initially, you could see the Congresswoman. She lunges back at the man and says something, but security was able to tackle him, get that syringe away from him. He continued to scream as they took him out of the room. On her way out of the event, Omar remained defiant.
I feel that it is important for people, whether they are in elected office or not, to allow these people to intimidate us, to make us not fight for our constituents and for the country we love. And as I said, you know, I've survived war, and I'm definitely going to survive intimidation and whatever these people think they can throw at me, because I'm built that way.
So Omar has been a frequent target of President Trump and says she and her family have been harassed and threatened countless times before tonight. The man who attacked her, by the way, was arrested quickly and now faces assault charges. Kyle.
Bill, thank you. A Department of Homeland Security review of the shooting that killed a 37-year-old man in Minneapolis does not suggest that Alex Priddy ever brandished a gun. That, of course, is what Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem claimed hours after the shooting. Video angles showed no such thing as well. A Border Patrol commander claimed without offering evidence that Priddy had planned to massacre law enforcement. Priddy, whose parents live in Arvada, was recording an immigration operation when he was shot by Border Patrol Saturday morning. The government review obtained by NBC News says that an officer yelled, "He's got a gun," and then 2 federal officers opened fire. Police have said that Priddy had a permit to legally carry a weapon. 2 Republican senators, Alaska's Lisa Murkowski and North Carolina's Tom Tillis, are now calling on Noem to resign. Faith leaders around the Denver metro area are coming together to condemn those recent killings involving federal officers.
9 News reporter Janelle Finch joins us now with more on their message. Janelle.
The Greater Metro Denver Ministerial Alliance says its mission 85 years ago was to mobilize for social justice in the African American community. With recent actions of federal officers, they say their scope of their work has grown.
Good afternoon.
Give a pastor a podium.
Amen. Amen.
And even a street can be a sanctuary.
Oh, God, we're not going to allow it. I said Americans, we're not going to allow it.
This message,
we're not going to allow it,
was directed at immigration enforcement officials.
Which is why we're standing in front of this detention center right here. Yes, we stand in solidarity in calling for the withdrawal of all ICE agents in Minnesota and everywhere they've been deployed.
Members of the Greater Metro Denver Ministerial Alliance called out what they say were unnecessary uses of force by federal officers.
That murdered Renee Good, Alex Jeffrey Priddy, and Keith Porter, who is often forgotten, of Los Angeles, California.
They're demanding reform, justice, and accountability.
So we felt that it was time for us to take a stand, and several came up with the idea altogether.
Dr. Odie Kennedy is the Alliance president. She says she stands for all oppressed people, but Alex Priddy struck more of an emotional chord for her.
The young man that was shot down was a nurse. I attest to that because I was a nurse for 56 years, and I understand the dignity, the action of nursing. No matter where you are, your first response is to protect.
The Alliance was joined by Temple Emmanuel rabbis.
Violence against the innocent is never acceptable.
Never.
And Justice for Black Coloradans representatives.
We demand dignity, and we demand an end to the profit-driven incarceration of our brothers and sisters.
Together, they hope this sermon reaches those beyond this street.
We have a republic if we can keep it.
Amen. The Alliance also plans to host a community vigil Friday. That'll be at 6 p.m. at the Absolute Word Church. The Alliance says all are welcome. Janelle Finch, 9 News.
For the first time in over 20 years, there are more people moving out of Colorado for other states than there are moving in. The state's demography office analyzed 2025 census data. They're tying the decline to a historic decrease in international migration across the U.S. They point out once a migrant from another country has entered the U.S., any future moves to other states is counted as domestic. And the state's demography office says at least some of the people who migrated out of state had recently moved to the U.S. from other countries. Overall, U.S. population growth slowed sharply, increasing by 0.5 percentage point as the Trump administration began their major immigration crackdown. Colorado's population increased by 0.4%, reaching over 6 million.
An overnight count of all the people living on the streets in Denver is tracking progress toward the city's ambitious goal of ending chronic homelessness. Volunteers went out in the dead of night for the point-in-time count. They mapped locations and tallied the people they saw sleeping outside. Those numbers will help determine how much federal funding Denver gets to fight homelessness. The city has already spent well over $200 million in the last 3 years to move people indoors and then on to permanent housing. The annual count of people sleeping outside is dropping, but the mayor's goal to solve unsheltered homelessness is obviously easier said than done.
Many of the folks that are still outside at this point, they've been offered quite a few options. It is a harder problem for us to solve at this point. And so we are really wrestling with how do we manage this problem? How do we get people connected to services?
The complete numbers from this year's point-in-time count, which includes other municipalities besides Denver, will come out this summer.
The mayor of Loveland says he wants to work with Larimer County and neighboring cities to address homelessness there. The city announced yesterday it's closing the Loveland Resource Center at the end of April and will stop providing overnight shelter there in mid-March. The city had also been talking about buying a building to turn into an overnight shelter and resource center. Now they say they can't because the organization that would have run it withdrew its application. Today, we asked the mayor, what's next?
What we need to do in this county itself is try and get the cities together, the county together, see what we can do about finding a regional solution that will help us out.
When the resource center closes, there will not be an overnight shelter for adults in Loveland.